the Constitution to conduct elections, both by-elections and general elections in the Republic of Kenya. So what are some of the hits and misses that we've had historically over this particular electoral body? What can be done better? What should this particular institution constitute of? We do understand, of course, that the selection panel names from various professional bodies, including the Law Society of Kenya, the Interreligious Council, the Parliamentary Service Commission, and many other bodies. But that is just not where it ends. There's also the process of the commissioners as well. So we'll be having a broad-based conversation around this, and you can be part of it. Give us your feedback across our social SMS lines, as well as our social media platforms where we are streaming live. I'll be in studio joined by Nelson Omoyo, who's a political scientist, as well as Ngugi Ndegwa, who's the executive director of Ustawi Kenya. So that is one conversation that you do not want to miss. But before we get into that, how about we take a look at stories making headlines across the country? Is that now President William Ruto officially opened a school for people living with intellectual disabilities and laid the foundation stone for the Nyali Technical and Vocational Trainings Institute in Mombasa County early on Monday. President Ruto concluded his coastal tour by visiting Tana River County, where he continued to launch various development projects.
Pia tumekubaliana mbali na kujenga TVET hii, mbali na kujenga mashule, pia wabunge wote sasa wako na nafasi ya kujenga mahali vijana watapata ajira. Tumekubaliana ya kwamba tutajenga ICT hub katika kila ward hapa Nyali na Kenya mzima. Na nawauliza wabunge, ili waweze kutekeleza hiyo mpango ya ICT hub, ndio hawa vijana wengi waanze kupata nafasi ya kujifundisha mambo ya teknolojia, tuwapatie computers, to connect internet, tuwapatie walimu, ndio waweze kusaidia sisi katika kupanga ajira ya vijana wa Kenya. Vijana wawe na mapato, ndio tuende sote tupige hatua ya kwenda mbele. Kwa vijana wetu wa pwani hapa, tumeweka mpango kamili ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba tunawapatia training. Wale coxswains watatusaidia katika hiyo uchumi samawati na uvuvi, ya kwamba serikali imetoa mpango ya kuwapatia training free of charge. Kila kijana atasomeshwa bila ya kulipishwa pesa yoyote. Tumekubaliana vile vile ya kwamba tunanunua boat 25 mpya, tuwapatie hawa vijana waweze kufanya deep sea fishing, watuletee samaki, wajiongezee mapato, tupate chakula na tuzalishe uchumi wa pwani.
An officer from the Kenya Wildlife Service in Kwale County has died in a road accident in Diani. The officer reportedly lost control of his vehicle while traveling from Msambweni to Likoni. The car overturned and plunged into Mwachema River. Msambweni Police Commander Francis Gashoki confirmed the accident and said investigations are ongoing. The officer's body is being preserved at the Aga Khan Hospital mortuary in Mombasa.
Ajali imefanyika na yule mhusika ambaye alikuwa ndani ya hilo gari ameaga dunia, lakini gari likatumbukia kwenye mto. Nafikiri inaweza kuwa aidha yule dereva alikuwa amesinzia ama magari automatic pia. Huenda ilikataa ilijilock na akashindwa kupiga ile kona. Kwa hivyo akatumbukia ndani ya mto.
Gari ikapotea mwelekeo na bibirika mara kadhaa na akatupwa nje ya gari. Bahati mbaya akaaga hapo. Afisa wetu wa traffic akakimbia hapo, alafu akachukua mwili akapeleka Aga Khan mortuary Mombasa na akafuta gari wakaileta Diani Police Station. Sasa inangojea kufanywa inspection na watu wa NTSA na uchunguzi inaendelea ili tuweze kujua nini sababisha hiyo njaa.
Now, various institutions in the country through the Ministry of Education celebrated 100 years since the establishment of Kabete Technical Training Institute in Kiambu. The celebrations were officially opened by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Finnish Ambassador Pirkka Tapiola, and several key directors. Musalia praised the steps taken in the education sector to ensure the success of technical training across the country, stating that the government has invested more in the education sector to strengthen technical institutes and provide skilled training to students nationwide.
A great opportunity to enhance the quality of our TVET trainees and trainers, to equip them with quality skills that can fit well in job markets in Kenya and abroad. Our TVET graduates are taking advantage of the bilateral labor agreements we have negotiated with foreign governments to access accredited jobs in international labor markets. Collaboration between the state departments of TVET, Diaspora Affairs, Labor and Skills Development, and Immigration and Citizen Services has embraced the whole of government approach in delivering on the government's promise of securing quality diaspora jobs. Finally, let me take this opportunity to appreciate all the students who have gone through the TVET institutions and their instructors for demonstrating the importance of technical skills to Kenya's industrialization. To all stakeholders and partners who have supported the TVET sector, your collaboration has contributed to Kenya's growth and prosperity. And as I speak, I also look at Ambassador Tiapola, because the 20 or so partners working with us are indeed most welcome. Thank you. So let this centenary celebrations renew our joint commitment to advancing technical and vocational education in Kenya. TVET will be an important catalyst for transforming Kenya into a newly industrialized nation.
Now it's time to nominate a candidate for the AU chairmanship draws near. The government has made efforts to ensure the leader of the Azimio coalition, Raila Odinga, will be among the candidates to succeed Musa Faki in the February elections in 2025. Kenya officially submitted Raila Odinga's candidacy for the leadership of the African Union Commission. The AU has set August 6th as the deadline for submitting candidates' details, and previously the government missed the June 30th deadline due to delays caused by the anti-government protests in the country. Now, the Cabinet Secretary's vetting process, which will take place between August 1st and 4th August at the Mini Chamber County Hall, is finally out. It is expected that the vetting process will begin with Professor Kithure Kindiki, who has been nominated as the Cabinet Secretary for Interior. Following him will be Deborah Barasa, who will be nominated or vetted for the position of CS for Health. Alice Wahome will then be assessed for her suitability as the Cabinet Secretary for Lands. The day will as well continue with Julius Ogamba, the nominee CS for Education, and will conclude with Soipan Tuya, who has been nominated for the position of Cabinet Secretary for Defense. On day 2, which will be 2nd of August, the second day of vetting will start with Andrew Karanja, the nominee for CS Agriculture Ministry. He will be followed by Eden Dwale, who is up for the position of CS for Environment, Climate Change. Eric Muga will be vetted for the role of CS Water Ministry. And the vetting process within the day will continue with Davis Chirchir, nominated for the position of CS for Roads and Transport, and will end with Margaret Ndungu, the nominee CS for ICT. Day 3, which will be 3rd August, John Mbadi will be the first to be vetted for the position of the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. Following him, Salim Mvuria will be assessed for the role of CS for Trade. Rebecca Miano, nominated for CS for Tourism, will be next, followed by Opio Wandai, who is up for the position of CS for Energy. Now, the day will conclude with Kipchumba Murkomen, the nominee for CS Sports. On the final day, which will be 4th of August, the vetting process will begin with Hassan Ali Joho, who's been nominated for the position of CS Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. Alfred Mutua will be vetted next for the role of CS for Labour. Wycliffe Oparanya, the nominee for CS for Cooperatives, will follow. And the vetting will continue with Justin Muturi, up for the position for CS for Public Service. And will conclude with Stella Soilangat, who's been nominated to the Ministry of Gender. So that is on the CS nominees, of course, the timeline. And there's also a committee that has been put up in place that will be able to vet this particular CSS. This is led by the Speaker of the National Assembly. So that is something that the whole country is looking up to. However, on the other side, the PNU party has announced its intention to withdraw from the Azimio la Umoja Kenya coalition, following the recent decision by the ODM party to appoint politicians to President William Ruto's cabinet or nominate. Now, speaking in Meru County, PNU leader Peter Munya said it was ironic for Odinga's party to be in government while still remaining in opposition, thus the need to separate. Munya also revealed that a meeting has been scheduled for Thursday to decide on staying or leaving the coalition. This follows NARC Kenya's decision, led by Martha Karua, to issue a notice of withdrawal last Thursday.
Ndugu yetu Msalia, ndugu yetu Wetangula, ile 30% ambayo mlituambia, juzi tumeajiri polisi 5,000. Kila constituency ilikuwa inapewa watu 6. Ukipiga times 290 ni karibu 1,600. Hizi nafasi zingine 2,500 kwa share yetu ya 30% iko wapi? Jeshi vile vile. Kwa hivyo watoto wetu, sisi tumekuja hapa kwa huu mjadala, tulete watu wetu pamoja.
Tuko namba 2 katika taifa la Kenya. Tujiulize, wakati masuala ya taifa la Kenya yanajadiliwa, sauti ya Mlembe iko wapi? Sauti ya Mlembe iko wapi? Wakati watu wanajipangia mambo, hatima ya jamii zao, sisi kama Mlembe tuko wapi? Watoto wetu wamesoma, wazee wameuza mashamba, watu wako na madigiri wameleta nyumbani, tunaangaliana namna hii. Hakuna kazi. Nafasi yetu iko wapi? Ikikuja kwa masuala ya siasa, msemaji wa Oluya ni nani? Nani ako kwa ile mesa ambaye anaangalia masuala ya Mluya? Haya ndio mambo ambayo tumekuja hapa tuulizane na watu wetu. Politics about numbers. Sisi kama jamii tumetumia namba zetu namna gani ili tuache kuomba vile tunaomba, sema kwamba tumepewa nini. Kwa sasa inatakana kuwa nafasi ya Mluya ako ende hapo na kisu ya kugawa hii nyama, tunapata namna gani? Kama tungekuwa tumejipanga vizuri with our numbers. Watu wetu, imekuwaje jamii namba 2? Hata urais peke yake hatuwezi kunusa.
Natembea, angalia mbele. Huko mbele labda kuna vacuum. Labda wewe ndio hope yetu. Tuelekeze tufike huko. 2027 ni karibu. Hatuna mtu ambaye tunaona anasimama pale.
All right, the newspapers, we kick it off with the Standard tight corner. That is the headline on the top of the page. 2022 to 2024. Just what has happened? How much has changed politically in Kenya? Now, the Deputy President's fate hangs in the balance after a night meeting at the house of a senior government member discussed his impeachment on grounds of insubordination and pushing for tax rebellion. That is the headline this morning. Tight corner. The Deputy President fate hangs in the balance after a night meeting at the house of a senior government member discussed his impeachment on grounds of insubordination and pushing for tax rebellion. Pardon me. That is a story that is on page 4 of the Standard newspaper this morning. And I will quote Embakasi North Member of Parliament James Gakuyo, who says the impeachment threat has been making rounds in our MP circles for long, and it is now high time it is actualized as opposed to being used to blackmail Gachagua. So how did we get here? Because as the DP himself says, they were the, apple of the people's eyes back in 2022 as they campaigned, with the bromance that we saw between himself and the President, William Ruto, in the run-up to the elections. And so DP Gachagua's troubles multiply following Nairobi night meeting. Now, players feel it will be easy to unseat the DP due to the new alliance between UDA and ODM party, but friends think otherwise, as he is the head of Mount Kenya. Now, a Saturday night meeting at the Nairobi home of a cabinet secretary nominee opened the tap of troubles ahead for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and the attendants at the meeting resolved to raise a motion of impeachment against Deputy President. They accused Gachagua of gross violation of the Constitution and gross misconduct, and sources who attended the meeting spoke to the Standard and said the host of that particular meeting is a member of Mount Kenya. Now, the night meeting brought together 21 MPs from the region. The leaders took issue with the DP for what they deemed insubordination of his boss, Ruto, and undermining the presidency owing to his divisive tribal and shareholding narrative. The CS nominee, according to multiple sources, told the MPs that the president was fed up with his deputy for being irresponsible and holding him hostage. Gachagua was accused of blackmail and that he always demands an unreasonable share of appointments in government for his community at the expense of other communities. Now, the Standard have been able to do a pattern of just how likely this particular voting pattern may go, if at all, this particular motion gets to the National Assembly, because constitutionally, the DP is an elected, member of public service. Himself and the president got into those particular seats through an elective vote, not an appointed vote. So you don't just remove them from office unless a due process is initiated that involves impeachment. And that means the House of Parliament is at the center of this particular kind of process. Now, the National Assembly has got 349 members. And according to the Standard and what it has done an analysis on, likely to support the motion include 144 UDA members of parliament, Jubilee members of parliament, about 28 of them. We also have, the PAA party, which has got 3 members who are likely to support. Ford Kenya party has got 6 members. We've also got ODM party, which has got 86 members. So in the analysis, likely to support the motion is about 297 members of parliament. Now, likely to oppose the motion is at 37 members of parliament. With Wiper Party, interestingly, 26 of them are likely to oppose this particular motion. We've got the Democratic Action Party of Kenya with 5 members who are likely to oppose this motion, and the KANU Party with 6 members. So that brings a total of 37 seats. Now, we've also got the independent members of parliament factor, who are 12 of them at the National Assembly, as well as constituencies that have got vacant seats. This includes Banisa and Magarini constituency. And so whatever way they used to formulate this particular, of course, the statistics seems to have largely based on the parties and just the popular, political party stance and what the parties may be able to stand on. But interestingly, those are likely to oppose those who will call themselves as Azimio Coalition, Wiper, DAPK, and KANU, other than ODM party who've been put on the other page. So that is interesting, and a tight corner it is, and just how fast things are likely to change. Well, this is just, I believe, an exclusive by the Standard, who have been able to put up that story on a tight corner and impeachment plans by members of the UDA party in Kenya. Also, top of the page, William Ruto show. President goes all out to woo Kenyans. The president has started a series of town halls where he engages Kenyans. He picks questions and moderates the sessions too. So he's also turned moderator. And it's basically himself, the mic, and answering questions and just explaining. And this was the first town hall meeting we saw the head of state had on Sunday in Mombasa. Even as he said, you know what, he'll be open to engaging more of this so that he's direct to the people. Also, after the CSS, Ruto X to land on PSS, a directive that principal secretaries will be fired if Auditor General establishes audit queries is pushing some of them to consider quitting the public service. Austerity measures you may call. Also, Mbadi Nomics, will he thrive? John Mbadi. He's been one of the fierce critics of the Ruto government's handling of the economy. The shoe is now on the other foot. Will he introduce policies that will stem tide? How does he now balance between what the government wants and what the people want? Well, that is the headline on the Standard. Now to the Daily Nation that speaks of revealed 54 billion shillings Ruto budget waste. 54 billion shillings Ruto budget waste. Extravagance. An analysis of government expenditure reveals at least 54 billion shillings wasteful spending, explaining President William Ruto's directives to state agencies to slash huge allocations to hospitality, travel, confidential kitties, and overlapping roles. Now, in the financial year 2023-2024, wasteful expenditure for hospitality, about 3.7 billion shillings was spent on hospitality. On fuel and lubricants, 980 million shillings was spent. On servicing vehicles in government, 358 million shillings was spent. On domestic and foreign travel in government, 14 billion shillings was spent. And in other operating expenses, which are not indicated, about 32 billion shillings was spent. And others, whatever others may be, 2 billion shillings was spent. So that is a headline that is on top of the page, on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, is where they've gotten deeper into the analysis. But it just reveals over the wasteful spending and extravagance, opulence, you call it, within the government, within the financial year 2023-2024. And why Ruto needs to cut this sort of spending. Now, for instance, allocation for communications equipment at State House in Nairobi, that costs us about 40 million shillings as a country. Office of the Secretary to the Cabinet has about 3 million shillings. Those are just for communication equipment. We've also got the Presidential Communication Service, which spent about 7.2 million. Policy Analysis and Research at 80,000. Office of Fiscal and Affairs Budget Policy, 3 million shillings. Office of the First Lady, 2.8 million. Office of the Economic Transformation, 4.7 million. So the total money spent on communications equipment at State Houses, that's 87 million shillings. Now on hospitality spending, State House leads at 885 million shillings on hospitality. The Interior Ministry at 790 million. Office of the Deputy President at 394 million. Executive Office of the President at 390 million as well. And then other ministries, which includes environment at 314 million, judiciary spent 107 million shillings on hospitality. So the total money spent on hospitality is at 3.7 billion shillings. Fuel spent of all these ministries is at 980 million shillings. So State House, of course, spending the largest amount on fuel, and that is at 319 million. Interior Ministry at 179 million. Office of the Deputy President at 141 million, as other ministries follow subsequently. So is this the extravagance that the head of state seeks to cut on? We'll see how the 2024-2025 financial year shapes this up. Also, top of the page, State at last submits Raila's bid for African Union Commission top seat. He signed those particular application details. Deadline is on August. Elections are in next year, February 2025, which is not too far away, by the way. So we'll see how that pans out. Uphill task for CS nominees amid public objections. Will members of parliament at the center of vetting, or this committee at the center of vetting, find any issue with any of these CS nominees, or is it just a through PAS. So those are the headlines on the Daily Nation. And then finally, on the Star newspaper this Tuesday morning, it speaks of Ruto to slash principal secretary slots and appoint Raila allies. Ruto to slash PS slots and appoint Raila allies. The head of states wants a lean, efficient government as demanded by protesters. Question is, at what expense and at whose expense? Now, the looming cabinet shake-up jitters as Ruto plots PS changes after Raila deal. And there's growing unease in government as it emerged that President William Ruto will make far-reaching changes. The radical changes across ministries are expected to see new faces appointed to the executive and others shuffled or fired. A senior Kenya Kwanza politician with knowledge of the plans told the Star that Ruto will instigate the changes once cabinet is in place. In the looming reshuffle of PSs, the politician hinted at the number of officials holding the positions being reduced from 55 to just under 40. Allies of opposition leader Raila Odinga said to be among those who will be nominated for the president or by the president for appointment. It is, however, not clear how many positions the ODM leader will get in this particular new appointment. So, under 40, that is what the head of state aims to achieve, with the principal secretaries who are currently at 55, and that means there will be a reduction of about 15 people or more, depending on what number he settles on. Also, those faces you see on top of the page are missing. Boniface Ogutu, Clinton Ouko, Daniel Kabusho, Lydia Oroko, Emmanuel Kamau Mukuria, Purity Njeru Gitau, and John Njoroge, as well as Teresa Murundi. Pain, anxiety for families with missing loved ones. This, the Star says, are demo victims. Now, a missing son or daughter or mother or father amid the constant news of bodies being discovered in morgues or decomposing in pits is a distressing experience one will never wish on their worst enemies. While countless families are in exhausting searches for their loved ones, some of the disappeared are returning home or being found so traumatized that they refuse to discuss their ordeal. Is 24-year-old Emmanuel Kamau Mukuria being held at Block L8 of Industrial Area Prison, or is he dead? Is he dead? That is the question Susan Wanjohi wants answered by authorities and a stranger call. Now, those people on top of the page are missing, as has been announced by their families. And those are just 8 people, and perhaps there could be more whose faces are not on top of the pages this morning that have gone missing within this particular period of protests, as the families are left in despair, pain, and anxiety. And we can only wish that authorities will, move in with quick to ensure that they're able to calm the fears of their loved ones, particularly during this period where we've had anti-government demonstrations. So those are your news headlines this morning across the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the Star. All right, so allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this morning around the Iebc recruitment process. The selection panel should be in place any minute from now, so this sets the stage for the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, an institution that has been clamored by a lot of significant issues within the country. So how do we move past that, and how do we make it better as a nation? So we'll be getting the views of 2 gentlemen in studio who will be joining me in just a bit. Stay with us, don't go anywhere. An important institution, independent for that matter, as well as a process that is set to begin today, goes on for 3 months, and that is on the Iebc recruitment process. This has been at the center of what Gen Zs want, but not just Gen Zs, but basically the whole country, to have this particular commission in place. It has been not properly constituted, with no quorum for more than a year now, and that is where the biggest brunt lie. In fact, the Chief Executive Office of the Iebc says it's basically are no goes on at the IEBC because no commissioners in place. There are still constituencies that do not have representation, wards as well that do not have representation because there are no commissioners in place. So we'll be taking a look at why this particular process matters and why it should interest you on who exactly gets into this seat and what exactly they're going to do as commissioners as well. And so I'll be joined in studio. I'm actually joined in studio, pardon me. Our immediate right is Nelson Omoyo, who's a political scientist. Asante sana, Nelson, for coming in this morning. Good to have you. And just next to him is Ngugi Ndegwa, who's the executive director of Ustawi Kenya. Asante sana, Ndegwa, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so before, gentlemen, we get this conversation started, I'd love us to listen into President William Ruto when he signed this particular bill, the IEBC Amendment Bill of 2024, and that was on July 9th. So let's listen into what exactly he said about this particular commission and why this process now matters as well. Let's listen into that first.
The signing of this bill paves way for the establishment of the selection panel for the appointment of IEBC commissioners. The IEBC remains a cornerstone of our democracy, responsible for overseeing regular elections at various levels, and on the overall, ensuring that our electoral cycle is managed transparently and administered in an impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner. I concur with leaders who have said there must be professionalism and integrity as part of the cardinal principles of the men and women who will be charged with the responsibility of overseeing our elections.
All right, that was the head president, William Ruto. They signed this at the KICC. The presence of other political leaders, including those from the opposition, the two speakers of the National Assembly. And gentlemen, this was as a result of the NADCO report, because the NADCO report had been meeting for the better part of July 2023, bipartisan talks they called it, and one of the things they really majored on as well was on the IEBC recruitment. Nelson, I'll begin with you. Were it not for the NADCO report, would we have had this process begin at this particular moment, or would it have delayed as it normally would till about the last year towards the coming elections?
I think first, the NADCO report, we had forgotten about it for a long time. It was what the rage that happened and the happenings of last month after the finance bill and young people going to the streets that necessitated the signing of the bill. However, it should have surprised us as a country why we do not have well-constituted IEBC commission.
Yes.
Because it's a constitutional commission. It's more like lacking the president. Because IEBC is the engine of the country. It's where we all start. It's through elections, and all through we should be having by-elections happening. We should have, like right now, the conversation is about recalling
members of parliament. Yeah.
How does it happen without commissioners? So I think with or without NADCO, as a country, we should. Actually, we were in a crisis that we assumed for a long time.
Ngugi, do you sit the same from where you sit?
I will really not be surprised and maybe shocked if we were to have this discussion maybe like 3 years from now, 2 years from now. And I agree with my brother that one of the reasons I think this push has been made or has come that fast is because of what we have had and the political unrest that we have had in the recent past. But be as it may, it is also good to understand the politics of our nation and to understand that the politics of just like in any other country, there are a lot of interest, and there being a lot of vested interest, that means that what we had in NADCO was not really per se. 90% was not about the people. It was about positions. That is the bare truth.
Yeah.
We have seen that in the past. We have seen where people go to the table, but what they discuss is actually to help them to get to what positions they want. So I think this will have been shelved. It had been shelved, and part of the reason it had been shelved is because some of the interest of maybe the big wigs seemed to have been taken care of.
Right.
Yes, and you will understand that even there are other issues that the NADCO wanted or was meant to address, which we do not see now. There are many presentations that were made by the youth, presentations that were made by the women, presentations that were made by political parties, and with a very huge participation of the PPLC, political parties liaison committee. But we still do not see them, but we hope we will. But now that this has come, I think let us just say that it is good for now.
Yeah, and you know, both of you have said not just the NADCO, but also the timing as well of the crisis that we had at hand. And you know, this process has always been termed very political, because there will always be a political behind it, on just how fast the process may go, as well as how slow the process may go, because the last time we had a commission in place was in January of 2023. And so it's been 1 year and about 7 months ever since we had commissioners. We're having constituencies that are not represented. We're having wards that are also not represented. And so how do we remove this political tag, this political process tag? How do we stem away from that to ensure that let it be people-centered? Because as you've said, initiatives come into place. We have forums, we have, you know, committees that are put up in place, but they're not always people-centered. So how do we make this process people-centered, Ngugi?
One, I think the entire thing or the entire issue about us having a bad political culture is based in the system of our politics. And I think unless we are able to come to terms with the fact that we have a very bad political system where there are a lot of political parties that do not base their arguments or maybe their issues on policies, then we have, it means that now it creates a room for political parties being only vehicles for that particular year when we are having elections.
Right.
So, so that we solve this cyclic issue of because even if we were to reconstitute an IEBC right now, in the next term, we will also have to, it has happened. We had this push in 2013, we had it in 2017, now we are having it, and even in 2022, despite this committee, and even the previous one, which was the electoral ECK, being constituted with the hand of the political parties in it as stakeholders, there were still issues. So I think this cannot be solved just by just a whip of it and saying that we have solved it now. It must now begin from the bottom, so that we have political parties being formed for particular reasons. We have them reduced from over 90. We have over 90 political parties that are registered. We need a lesser number that now addresses issues, so that when it comes to election, there is more trust, so that we do not have everyone seeking to have their hand in it. You will see that yesterday the PPLC, I think it is the PPLC that forwarded concerns about one of the members that had been proposed from the Labour Party, saying that the Labour Party is not a parliamentary group, a parliamentary party of the what we have, the coalition. So I think it means that everyone wants to have their hands in the cookie jar.
Right.
And it's only good that we solve it from the bottom. And I think that is my take.
Right. Nelson, you see, right now, for any person that is coming into a political office or a public office will undergo a lot of scrutiny from the public. They want to know even what they ate for dinner. They would want to know what they do, people they've got into contract with, and tenders that they've gotten, etc., and so many other things. And so how does this now bear fruit for this particular recruitment, to an extent that let it not be this is just left to the people in the boardrooms for them to make decisions, but it can also be influenced by what the people want and who they feel is rightly placed to be in that particular sort of selection panel before subsequently they get into the commissioners?
First, I would say that the IEBC is a political institution. Based on that fact, the perception of the people, how they perceive the kind of commissioners there matters a lot.
Yeah.
And the issue about the previous commissioners has been trust. From, and I'll speak from 2010 when we promulgated the constitution and how the IEBC has gone. We try to avoid speaking about the ECK, but ever since we had the IEBC, we've always had trust issues. Remember, there's a time some political parties boycotted elections, and we had elections conducted, and things went on as usual, which should not be very normal in a country, in a democratic space like ours. So, based on that, the people's perceptions matters a lot. We need to have people whose character cannot be questioned. That you are very transparent, that we know your history, but the problem is that from the start has always been from the selection panel. And I think right now, if you've been very keen, you've seen people wanting to know, even those people getting to the selection panel, how did those parties, how did those groups that they represent in the selection panel come to conclusion that these people are the best candidates. If we have a good selection panel, then this selection panel will give us people of good character. And then we might not have the questions that we've always had during the previous elections and during as the commissioners, as they continue the activities within the IEBC. Yeah.
All right. Now, we're expecting that, the names of the selection panel will be submitted to the head of state today, within the law. After he had signed the bill on July 9th, 14 days for the selection panel to be formed, for him to gazette this particular panel. And, it's being, the names are being, are submitted from various groups, including the Parliamentary Service Commission, the Law Society of Kenya, the Interreligious Council of Kenya, the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya, and the Political Parties Liaison Committee. If you look at these particular bodies, there are key institutions as well within the country. If you look at LSK, which of course has been commended over the work it has done within this particular period, the Interreligious Council, the Institute of Certified of Public Accounts of Kenya. And so you wouldn't exactly say there's a shortfall in terms of professionals who are able to go sit and vet people that will be coming into the commission. So where exactly now do we always get it wrong, such that a commission gets into place, once it does one or oversees one election, there's already a process for them to be removed from office. So where exactly do we miss, Nelson?
Where we always miss is that the inclusion part. That you see right now, those are just if we have professional bodies being represented in that commission, in that selection panel, while others miss within the selection panel, and we've made it a habit. Even I think there have been discussions, and during the election there were discussion on the person deputizing chairperson of the IEBC, who takes the role if we do not have a chair. Because there have been the technical aspect of who the chair is has always been, I think the threshold is too high that the other commissioners might not take. But for the selection panel, I think the inclusion bit, but that's not because if we all wanted to be included, maybe we'll have an expanded selection panel.
Yes.
But as it is, it's well. I think the only issue is now the political parties and the professional bodies, as they nominate their candidate to those positions, they should tell us how did they come to a conclusion that this should be this person should be the one representing them for the selection panel.
Right.
And then the process, how was the process? It should be transparent. We need to know how it came to be. Because I think we've learned from the finance bill that as much as Thames public participation is done, the views of the people are taken, but they do not matter. So, but also those people in power have also realized that we are observing from a distance. That if things go the way they went, people might want to take action. And I think from what we've learned, we won't want to get to that position as a country.
Right. Ngugi, this election panel, because it sets the stage for this process to start. And the people that are being nominated or at least representing these bodies are people you'd call professional people. And they will not make a mistake to put somebody in office who does not deserve to be there. But what happens that when this particular commissioners get into place, it seems they seem to be incompetent, they seem not to understand what they're doing, there seems to be a whole shift of just what exactly people had expected. So what are we missing in this particular process?
I think we highly politicize every issue in this country. And that remains one of the biggest problems because it is impossible to satisfy a politician. It is very impossible. It is impossible to satisfy political parties. And that is for a single reason that, for example, you will see what we have with the Kenya party. They were before a member of the Azimio coalition, but now they are not. So which means even if we were to select these commissioners based, or maybe to have a selection panel that represents these coalitions and alliances, they are shifting goals. One time they are in this coalition, the other they are, so you will not satisfy them. So I think so that we deal with this issue, we should look at professionalism. But even as we look at how professional these commissioners will be, then it is also important that we remove the issue of politicization so that we do not now divert their attention from working to trying to be politically correct so that they do not get out of office. Because you will see that we have seen very professional people who are very good for the country, but once you get into office and you realize, it is not what I thought. I will have worked better based on what I had planned, but now because I have now other quotas to please, I now have to divert my way of working to it. So I think it is all in the system, as I had said. So I think to solve this, it will be important that we remove politicization and also improve our systems so that it doesn't matter who is in that position. It doesn't really have to matter. We can even have a commission that runs from term to term and even delivers if we remove our minds from having trust issues. And one of the issues that I think causes this political distrust is how we come out of our elections. And I think now it is important that we also look at the issue of the best losers. because now we have best winners being taking government. Now, how about these best losers who feel that now they must become part of the government by all means?
If you speak on that term, that means like an office of the official opposition leader.
Yes.
Will that solve these particular issues that we get every post-election?
As will be enshrined in the constitution, and a very good office that is well structured, that we know if this particular person were to get out of office, then who, just like we have in government, if this particular person were to get out of office, then who takes over? So that we do not have people who are shifting goals, so that they fit.
Yeah, looking for those positions. Yes. What is your view on that, Nelson?
I think it brings out a very relevant subject, that this panel is, a majority of them are politicians. Yeah. They decide, they want to decide on who is their referee in a game they are going to play. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, and they forget that the most important people in this subject, in the conversation, should be the citizens. Because them, they participate, but the real people in the ring are the politicians. They are the ones seeking office. So you don't go selecting your referee. It doesn't look good. It isn't fair. And after the game, we will go back to the same position. Yeah.
All right. Now, this commission, of course, has 3 months. This panel, the selection panel has 3 months to be able to do a lot of interviews, vet, and subsequently submit these names to the president. But there's a general feeling that that's just a long time, because the people want to recall their MPs as soon as possible. In fact, if it were possible by August, they would have recalled them. Wow. What happened?